I'm in the library with a good friend of mine named John Schulze. He and his wife Sherry live in Maryland, and you may know his daughter, Sarah. She is married to Alan Tolliver, and they now live in Culpeper, where they're involved in ministry there. I have had the opportunity to get to know John and Sherry for the last 7 years as they've come to visit Alan and Sarah. But 5 years ago, John went through a very tragic situation. His father passed away, and he asked me to do his funeral, and I got to know him at that point. And immediately after that, his mother passed away after a long battle with Alzheimer's. So I've had an opportunity to get to know John and Sherry for the last 5 years. And today I wanted to introduce you to John and get him to tell a little bit of his story about his business. John and his brother are owners of Pizza Hut of Baltimore. They have 44 stores and employ roughly 1,500 individuals. And the story that I think is really neat about how their business started involves his father. And John, would you kind of tell us the story of how your dad got rolling with the Pizza Hut Corporation?
Well, in 1969, my brother and I were still in college, and my dad found out he was doing commercial real estate in the Washington area, that the gentleman who had the area wasn't developing it. And as a result of that, he contacted Pizza Hut, vice president of franchising there, found out that was indeed the case, sent them a check, and secured the area. And some week or two later, called the vice president of franchising and said, please don't cash that check, and send it back, and that we would take care of it with our first equipment loan. And the fact of the matter was, my dad didn't have the money that he'd written the check for. And they did that. And I don't think you'd find that in the business world today, but that's what happened then. And from that point forward, there was no option. We had to be successful.
So you're telling me that your father purchased the Baltimore franchise for Pizza Hut with a check that just wasn't good until you had a loan. That's an amazing step, an amazing risk in my opinion. Now, how long had your father been involved in the food industry when he got involved with Pizza Hut?
Nobody in our family had any food or restaurant experience.
So no restaurant experience, no work in that industry, it was all real estate, but you chose when that opportunity presented itself to buy the franchises and get started there. Where were you and your brother at that point?
Well, my brother was flying planes for the Navy. He was tail end of Vietnam, and he hadn't finished his training, and he got an early out, and came up and started running the operations. And I was teaching school in King George County, right up the road here, as it turns out. And my wife was teaching school there also when Sarah was born. And that's it was shortly after that that my dad called me and said, if you want to come up, I need this and this done, and if you don't want to come up, I'll have to hire somebody else to do it.
And what did he ask you to start doing?
He wanted me to take care of construction, and we had to obviously build a fair amount of stores fairly quickly, and he also wanted me to take care of all of our purchasing.
Now, how long or how much construction did you have in your background?
Oh, I had a lot. I mean, I was when I was in high school, I was a carpenter's helper for, I think, 3 summers. I don't think I left anything out. That's it.
Your father hires you out of education, out of teaching, and asks you to start building stores. And in that first couple of years, how many stores were you responsible for building?
We averaged for the first 10 years, we were building 2 to 2.5 stores a year.
So in 20 years, you, with no construction background, were able to build 20 plus 25 stores at that time.
Oh, in 20 years we built 40 stores.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at when you take a glance in the background and you see where you've been and what you've done, what are some of the significant risks or significant challenges that you've found or faced?
One was not disappointing my father. That also wasn't an option. The other was learning what you had to learn to get the job done. properly and bring the stores in on time. The other big challenge was working with our employees as we developed. In the very beginning, we were all in the stores. We were all on the job sites building stores and actually swinging a hammer. That evolved to where you had to manage people. Anybody who has been in that boat before understands that's a whole different kettle of fish.
So when you look back and think about your father's initial investment, and you think, I think of the risk that was involved in writing a check that you knew you didn't have the funds to cover, and expecting in your first loan to make those payments, getting involved in an industry that you had no experience, asking a son to start building stores who had very little experience. I'm seeing risk after risk after risk, and the way you all were able to succeed was through the hard work, through the sweat equity, and a commitment to seeing this succeed.
Yeah, that's about right. And it's you know, the phrase back then was the American dream. Whether that is still available, I'll leave for someone else to talk about it.
Well, as I hear your story, and have heard your story for the past several years, it's an impressive story. And this morning, as we talk in the sermon in just a few moments, we're going to be talking about people who, the kingdom of heaven, are challenged to take risks, to be working hard to make something happen in the name of Jesus, to go the extra mile. And so I appreciate you taking time today to drive down, to meet with me, and to tell your story, albeit very briefly. And I thank you.
Well, I'm no problem at all being here. I would like to leave one other thought that's left that we haven't talked about, and that is, we didn't do this alone. You know, we have people in our office who average over 20 years at this point, and without them, most of our success, maybe all of our success, wouldn't have been the least bit possible. And so that's important. You need to develop your people, and they need to understand. Everybody's got to be understanding what you're trying to accomplish. And we've been very, very fortunate to have good people to help us.
So you're saying helping people to understand the vision, the direction, the purpose.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you.